So if you watch the end of part one, you'll know that we are currently working on more of our custom functions um, for the Unit 3 project. So you can see here, any function that has that red line underneath it means that it can't find a definition. So you'll see handle quit, handle help, handle status, and so on all have these red lines underneath them. And that means that there is no definition. So that's what we need to go through and create. And I'm going to go ahead and start with the def handle travel. And of course, with the function notation, we need those dots at the end compared to just the calls down here. Handle travel, based on the rules that we have for the project. I'm going to go down and find my notes. We basically want to travel a random amount of miles that are min max a certain number. And then we want to add that to a total. We want to tell the user how much they have left to go. And then we also want to, and for all these functions that are doing a user action, we're going to increment the number of days using our add day function. And so you'll see all of that. For our handle travel, we need to set up some different variables though. So here I'm going to go and I want to set it up at the top. I'm going to set up total miles traveled. And this is going to be just a count of how many miles the users traveled through the script that we have. And then I want to think, what else do I need? I want number of miles traveled. And I think as far as model variables, that's pretty much it. Now, what we also need, and what I'm going to copy from my notes, is a minimum and maximum amount of miles traveled, as well as a minimum and maximum days. So you can see a lot of our different functions that do user activity are going to be kind of similar to this. We are going to have min for the activity, and then we're also going to have min days per whatever we're doing. So like if we're doing hunting, we'll have minimum days per hunting. And here you can see our minimum days per travel is 3. Our max is 7. And these are all given by the project document. So if you're wondering where I'm getting these numbers, now since we have them in capital letters, these are considered constant. We're not going to be changing these letters. We'll use these for our random function. Speaking of, I also know that I want to import random here because we're getting to the part of the project where we're going to include chance into the different actions that a user can take. So here for handle travel, I am going to first start by calling my global variable total miles traveled. And now I'm going to say random miles traveled. And this is going to be the random variable that I'm going to use later to kind of increment my total miles travel, right? So here I'm saying that my random miles travel equals random dot rand int. And our rand int is a function that we give two numbers to, and it gives us an integer between those, including those. So here I'm going to say min, and I'm going to select for this min miles per travel and then max miles per travel. And then I'm also going to use that to plus equal my total miles traveled. Pretty simple, straightforward. The second part of what I need for this though is the random days traveled. So I'm going to say random days traveled, and that is equal to random.rand int, and we're going to feed it the min days per travel and the max days per travel. You can see we accidentally used max over here. I can change that very easily. Days per travel. And it wants to type a bunch. And that's totally fine. So now I'm going to change that to traveled. And the way that I've decided to do this in my project, and you can of course do this differently in yours, is when I increment days, I don't want to pass, I chose not to pass that function anything. What I chose to do instead is call a for loop inside of each one of my functions because I want to control it here. So I'm going to say for day in range, random days traveled. I'm going to do this that many times, and I'm going to say add day. So now for 0 to however many days I have, or for 1, I'm going to add a day, and that's going to call my add day function. And that's pretty much it. Pretty straightforward, pretty easy. Now, the only other thing I think I want to do is I want to include 2 more variables. I have a constant that I'm going to use called total miles. and that's equal to 2,000. That represents how many miles that you can travel in the game. And down here, I am going to include a miles remaining variable that I'm going to display to the user. And that's simply equal to total miles. Oh, what did you do? Total miles minus total miles traveled. And I'm going to display that in the user. And for the sake of time, I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste what I've already done. Just two simple print statements. You've seen it before. So I'm going to print out that you've traveled, and I'm going to use a string of the random miles traveled. So how many of you traveled in that action for a total of however many miles total. And then you have the miles remaining left to go until Oregon. So pretty easy. And then I'm also going to give it just a little bit of buffer because I like having that little bit of extra output, and this is the simplest way I can do it. And so this all looks pretty sweet. What are we getting an error on? Oh, it's just a little bit too long. That's totally fine. So that is our handle travel variable. That's pretty straightforward. And matter of fact, I don't want to test any of this yet. It's bad practice, but I think this is a relatively simple, straightforward program, and we'll figure out what's wrong with it potentially later. So I'm just going to go ahead and start for you on the next function. So the next function that we're going to work on is going to be the handle rest function. So here I am going to say def handle rest. And this function behaves a lot like handle travel. Our handle rest, handle travel, and handle hunt functions are going to operate very similar. And in order to start with rest, I want to create another variable. And this variable is going to be our health variable. Now health, the way it's given to us in the prompt, is we start with full health, which is 5, and we go down all the way to 1 health. And then if the user has 0 health, they die, right? So here, I'm going to say global health because I want to impact the health variable. And I basically for this want to see if I'm just looking through all my notes. So what I'm going to be doing with this is I'm going to say I want to rest. The rest will take a random amount of time, and it will increment +1 for every single day that it's rested, right? Or what I should say is it'll rest and it'll give you 1 health, but it'll take a random amount of days. I think that's more accurate. So here I'm going to say if health is less than my max health level, which we will create. If I could type right now, I'm going to go and copy this, and I'm going to give it my max health level. Of 5. So then go no greater than 5. If my max health level is less than that, I'm going to say health, which I've declared as a global variable, is equal to +=1. And then I'm going to say random days resting. And we are going to do a very similar function to travel, where we check a random amount of days. And of course, here you can see I've copied over min days per travel, max days per travel. Let's go ahead and fix that. Let's go and add the 2 conditions that or constants that we want, which are right here. These are going to be minimum days per rest and max days per rest. And I will copy one of these. I'm going to go ahead and bring that down, and I'm going to replace my 2 right here, and I'm going to replace this with max. So now we're resting for a random amount of days. This is going to impact the user, and we're going to do the exact same thing again that we've done in travel. So now for day, we're going to change random days travel to random days resting. Go ahead and save. If the user is fully healed, which is the only other condition we have, I am going to simply tell them that they're fully healed. So I'm going to say print, you are fully healed. You do not need to rest. And I'm going to save, and that function will simply quit after that. The other thing I want to do is I also want to tell the user for how long they rested, and I'm going to go ahead and copy this over from my notes because it's a very simple print statement. So it's going to say you rested for random days resting, and your health is, and it gives them how much health they have right there, right? Straightforward. We've already done travel, so we've handled travel, and that comes out very similar. We're handling our days in a very similar way, and our logic for health is just slightly different. And you can see now that handle rest is complete. And we are going now to do handle hunting. Right, so the rules for this, I'll have to double check my notes, but I believe you go and you get 100 food, so you get the same amount of food every time you choose to hunt, but it does increment, just like health, a random amount of days. So we need to go back up here and create a variable for food, which I'm going to start with 500 for the user. And then I'm going to use maximums. And matter of fact, I'm going to give these all a little bit of space so you can read them easier. I want a maximum food per hunt, which is going to stay constant, as well as a maximum days per hunt and a minimum days per hunt. So every time that the user decides to go and find food, it'll take a random amount of days, right? So here, handle hunt. I am going to say global food, right? And then I don't even think we really need to do any checks on these because we're simply just going to say that the user in this imaginary game or this scenario that they can have as many food as they want. I'm going to say random days hunting is equal to, and because we're lazy coders, I'm going to bring down my random int function, except I need to change it to hunt, H-U-N-T. And I need to do the same for my maximum constant as well. And then I'm going to institute my for loop, which matter of fact, I'm just going to go ahead and pull that out. And I'm going to copy from up here. And that should say for day and range, random days hunting. And I'm going to copy a print statement that I have already created that simply concatenates that random days hunting to my string and lets the user know how many days they were hunting, right? And so that, I want to say, pretty much gives us most of the user commands that we can do. We also have the help command. The help command is pretty simple, so I'm just going to go ahead and pull this one on over. It simply is just going to give the user a command. What I would recommend you might be able to do in your own project is kind of expand this handle help to give the user an idea of what happens in each of these different scenarios. So how long does it take? What will happen? How much food will you get? How much health will you get? So that they have a better idea of what they're actually doing. Besides that, we have our check status, handle status, and handle quit. And we'll go ahead and show you that to do that in the next part of this video right here.